Five plus one.
Now, my name is Justin Shopper. The purpose of my speech today is a persuasive belief. The topic I'm going to cover is wildlife conservation and environmental compliance is what I'm looking at. Basically, what it boils down to is that man as a species has hunted and gathered since the dawn of time, since it was first fathomed, how we're going to survive and provide for ourselves. Man has hunted and gathered. Coming into most recent times, centuries and whatnot, man eventually goes into industrialization and then so on and so forth and kind of goes away from it. Well, because of industrialization and evolution of mankind in the aspect of productivity and whatnot, wildlife and the outdoors, trees, just the life force other than human life, gets overlooked, or it gets destroyed, or becomes extinct or exhausted. So basically with wildlife conservation, you have a couple different ways to look at it. You got like your hunters and fishers. They get their tag limits and their bag limits as well. Or you can look at it through the aspect of environmental conservation, saving land and saving oceans and whatnot. One of the forefathers of conservation was Theodore Roosevelt back in the late 1800s, early 1900s when he became president. And he actually, matter of fact, I got some interesting stuff here. He was the one who established 51 federal bird reserves, 4 national game preserves, 150 national forests, 5 national parks, and 18 national monuments. All of them encompassing a total of 230 million acres worth of land. It was saved during Theodore Roosevelt's tenure as our president. And while saving land and saving the forestry service and all that stuff like that, animals were incorporated into that as well. And then obviously one of the biggest extinctions that we've had on the North American soil was the North American buffalo or bison. Almost came to actual extinction. We went from numbers of somewhere up in the numbers of like 17.5 million creatures living in one spot at one point, and then it got all the way down below 2,000. So I mean, to go from 17.5 million to 2,000 animals, and that's pretty bad. But that's due to because of overhunting, people moving from the East Coast to West Coast and migrating, during like the Oregon Trail time frame, Lewis and Clark days, coming across the Great Plains. But some of the animals that were lost along the way were like the eastern elk. You have the Rocky Mountain elk or the Roosevelt elk that live on the West Coast. There are no elk that live on the East Coast that are normal or native to that area. They're all been implemented into the system after they become extinct. So here on the East Coast, you see an elk running around in the middle of the forest. It's not a native species. It's been introduced to the area. But it's not just animals that live on land. It's also animals that live in the air and beneath the water. One of the animals that have been extinct due to overfishing and then introduction of other species who were not from the area was the blue pike, which was up in the Great Lakes area. It was due to bad nutrition, industry dumping stuff into the lakes and riverbeds that join into the Great Lakes area, and ended up messing up its habitat. And because it messed up its habitat, it forced it to move. It was forced to move. The food source was not what it was used to. It was depleted. The species dies off. One of the things that we need to do as a society, as a species on this earth, we got to take serious our role in preserving and also securing our future for the future, for our kids' future, and doing the right things now to preserve wildlife and nature as it is, so that our children and their children can enjoy it later on down the road. And some of those things can be done through water conservation, minimizing the amount of water you use in your home. They can be done through amounts of energy you use at home, switching to more efficient or green the lack of a better term, appliances to save on energy costs, which in turn don't burn as many fossil fuels and everything else like that to pollute the environment. But little things like that lead to bigger things, and somebody once said that if you take care of the big things up front, the little things will take care of themselves. Well, that's in fact wrong, because it's actually, if you take care of the little things at first, the bigger picture takes care of itself. So little things would be like your lights, your water, your trash, your sewage, and everything else. Take care of them now, do the right things to conserve our nature and our national parks and wildlife that live in them. Later on down the road, they'll be taken care of because we took the steps now. So basically, in closing, wildlife conservation doesn't just start with us, it starts with our forefathers and will continue on with our children and their children. Again, my name is Justin Shopper, and thank you for your time.